New Orleans Saints wide receiver Kirk Merritt, Destrehan native, clears waivers. It's not over for him and the New Orleans Saints, and that too can be said about many players that you love. We got all that and a little bit of lanyard for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget that we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. And I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your New Orleans Saints expert, credentialed member of the media, CrescentCitySports.com, USA Today's Saints Wire, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is presented by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs make sure that you get to talk to the candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks so much for being here for another live episode of Locked On Saints. Whether you're joining us live or you're joining us later, if you're here live, make sure you get that your team every day in the chat. I'm seeing it already from Doug. What's going on, everybody? Appreciate y'all being here. So there's a whole bunch going on here around the New Orleans Saints and around the NFL, as teams have already cut down to the 53-man roster, but are now starting to assemble their practice squad. You're going to see me, if you're watching on video, you're going to see me look away quite a bit during today's episode because we're trying to keep up with everything that's going on. So I will be checking my phone periodically throughout. I'm apologizing in advance, but you know, it's a busy day. So big news for the New Orleans Saints so far in terms of players that were cut yesterday that cleared waivers today. Kirk Merritt, as well as wide receiver Dejon Dixon, both Louisiana natives, Destrehan native when it comes to Kirk Merritt, New Orleans native when it comes to Dejon Dixon. Both have cleared waivers and now have the opportunity to join the New Orleans Saints either on their practice squad or potentially on the active roster. On the same page, you also saw running back Abram Smith, as well as linebacker Nephi Sewell clear waivers as well. Nephi Sewell already back on the practice squad. But I want to highlight Kirk Merritt to get us started, because basically today, now that we're at noon or just after noon here Central Time, the New Orleans Saints are able to start adding players to their practice squad. It's going to be interesting to see if Kirk Merritt is one of those players added to the practice squad. And it's not the end of the world if he isn't. At 3 p.m. Eastern time today, the teams around the NFL will be allowed to move players to the injured reserve. You're already hearing some reports that some New Orleans players are expected to head there. Defensive tackle Malcolm Roach, offensive tackle Trevor Penning. The big piece around all this, too, is do you end up seeing Tre'Quan Smith going to injured reserve as well? Because if Kirk Merritt is not added to the practice squad before that sort of deadline or that point in the day where you can start to move players to injured reserve, and Tre'Quan Smith is moved to injured reserve, you might not see Kirk Merritt added to the practice squad. Instead, you might see him added to the new 53-man roster. Remember, yesterday's 53-man roster was an initial one that we knew was going to see a lot of changes over the course of the next 36 to 72 hours, effectively. And that is still what you should expect. So far, we've already seen some players added to the practice squad. Nephi Sewell, Rashid Shaheed, the explosive wide receiver and return specialist from Weber State. We've also seen other guys all added through, but we haven't yet seen guys like Dejon Dixon and Kirk Merritt just yet. So just something to keep an eye out on for now. A couple of other guys like DeMarcus Fields also added to. That's the name I was struggling to remember. My apologies. So don't be surprised if you don't see Kirk Merritt added to the practice squad, because he could potentially be on his way to the active roster. Don't be surprised if you don't see that practice squad move come up first. And I'm stressing that because I know people can get a little bit panicked if you end up seeing Kirk Merritt not added to that practice squad. There might be bigger opportunities for him with this New Orleans Saints team, because it's not over for the wide receiver just yet, who showed how versatile he can be. All the different ways that he's able to contribute on the team. Dennis Allen, over and over again, highlighting the more that you can do on the field, the more valuable you become. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that. We're also going to be keeping an eye out for a few other big names that we know, that you know and love. Guys like Abram Smith, Lucas Krull, who came in as the tight end from Pittsburgh, as well as, of course, Dejon Dixon and a few others. So Lots still to be done over the course of the next, couple of days when it comes to this roster. You should expect to see Malcolm Roach added to injured reserve later on today. I expect to see Trevor Penning added to injured reserve later on today. And then Traquan Smith is another big name that you're watching. Another name that you're watching on the market that didn't have to go through waivers but is still available is veteran linebacker Eric Wilson. It'll be interesting to see if Eric Wilson is somebody that also gets an opportunity to come back, where the New Orleans Saints ended up leaning a little bit more on youth and sort of versatility at linebacker as opposed to experience. Both John Bostic and Eric Wilson, neither of which making that 53-man roster, not initially at least. The Saints instead only keeping 5 linebackers where they would usually keep 6. So either they might be looking to add another, or they're going to be looking to swap some of these other guys out if anybody has to go to injured reserve. So that's going to be a big piece that's going to end up contributing to what this roster looks like over the course of the coming days. Outside of that, I'm not sure if there's any other players that I could see going to injured reserve, at least right now. The 2 names that you're hoping don't go to injured reserve to start the season are Michael Thomas and Paulson Adebo, who we haven't seen at practice just yet. But everyone else that we haven't seen at practice so far this week, Traquan Smith, Malcolm Roach, Albert Huggins, Trevor Penning, those guys have either already been moved to injured reserve in Albert Huggins' case or could be on their way. And speaking of Albert Huggins being moved to injured reserve, he plays a really specific role for the New Orleans Saints, being a nose tackle, lining up nose to nose with the center, trying to get that interior push so that quarterbacks can't step up in the pocket. Here we go. We got our first bit of news. As I'm talking about them, New Orleans Saints are bringing Kirk Merritt to their practice squad. This is according to Mike McCartney, who is a scouting director and a former NFL scouting director, now also reps athletes. And so Kirk Merritt is on the New Orleans Saints practice squad, but keep an eye out to see exactly what happens next now that all of that is set. So good news in terms of discussing Kirk Merritt, which is what I wanted to do to open up the episode today. So this ended up working out. So watch out for upcoming additional moves that could be on the way. And I see West Bank Rick with a really great question here. I hope everybody that is either watching, listening, checking in, either from or now outside of Mississippi, I hope everything is well. I hope that you are well. And just know thoughts are always with you. Now, the New Orleans Saints have seen some other moves already over the course of today. Ian Book headed to the Philadelphia Eagles, but the New Orleans Saints also bringing in a new player, a signing. So we'll break that all down for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Before we get to that, I want to take this opportunity to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn. While I do, drop your questions in the chat that I'll use for later on today for our evening episode later on today, so I can come back and get some of those questions. But I want to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn real quick. LinkedIn Jobs is just absolutely the #1 place that you need to visit when it comes to making sure that you're able to, if you're hiring or you have a small business or anything like that, talk to the candidates that you want to talk to for your open positions faster, and making sure that you're not only getting quality hires, but that you're getting them at a good rate versus leading competitors. That's the thing that has led LinkedIn Jobs to be #1 as voted on by small businesses in this arena. Of course, that extended network as well, large professional network of over 810 million people, absolutely incredible size. So if you want to make sure that you're getting your new jobs up in front of quality candidates as well as a wealth of candidates as well, head over to LinkedIn Jobs because they're going to help you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster. Did you know that over 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn every single week? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And in the meanwhile, I'm also going to take a moment to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made the way that it's supposed to. You pick 2 to 5 players, and then you just choose whether they're going to score more or less than their projected Prize Picks projection. That's all it's got to be. So passing yards, passing touchdowns, rushing yards. If you're a fan of golf, you've got birdies or better that you can do, which is always very fun. I love betting on golf. I think that's usually a good time. It makes it a lot more entertaining to watch, and you just kind of watch it a different way. Not that golf isn't already entertaining, but I'm just saying. Makes it a lot more fun to watch. So you can go ahead and check out all of that. You can also find more on the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, college football, college basketball, men's and women's, WNBA, esports, including Call of Duty, NASCAR, tennis. There's a whole bunch over there. Basically, if you can imagine it, they've got it for you over at PrizePicks. And in certain circumstances, if you ask for it enough, they'll give it to you as well. So download the PrizePicks app today or go to prizepicks.com so that you can start playing daily fantasy sports right now. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Nice and easy. Don't forget to enter that promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, checking to see if there are any other big moves going on around the New Orleans Saints. And so far, so good. Oh, here's another one here. We've got Josh Andrews headed back to the practice squad. We figured that was going to happen. He was released just a couple of days ago, or actually just yesterday. He was released, not waived. Roach is expected to be healthy enough to return from injured reserve as soon as he's eligible, by the way. So that's an update there from Nick Underhill of NewOrleans.football. So those are a couple of quick updates for you. That's what's going on with the New Orleans Saints. But let's also look away from the New Orleans Saints for just a moment, because one of the big things that I've been asked pretty much all offseason thus far is Ian Book going to be a New Orleans Saint in 2022? And I thought that he would at least be on the practice squad. I didn't know that he had did enough to really get an opportunity to be picked up elsewhere or to get that kind of attention elsewhere. Well, I was wrong. Ian Book is headed to the Philadelphia Eagles, just like CJ Gardner-Johnson. Now, the difference is the New Orleans Saints traded away CJ Gardner-Johnson on a surprise move yesterday that I still get, but I'm obviously no one is happy about and all that. West Bank Great asking who's on the injury report. There's no injury report until next week. So we have now with the, just to give you a quick update there, we have now Ian Book headed to Philadelphia in a bit of a surprise. I didn't think that he had done enough. I thought that the struggles of the first two games, as well as the struggles all throughout camp, were not going to be surmounted by the what you saw from him in that Chargers game, which was the best performance of his NFL career thus far. You can go back to last year's preseason. He had 24 attempts, if I remember correctly, in that preseason game last year. He played about 50 snaps in the game against the Miami Dolphins, which was just completely unfair, honestly. And then you look at the 3 games that he performed in over the course of the preseason, that Chargers game was the absolute best that we've seen from Ian Book, and it was good. Right? And so I didn't think that he was going to get another opportunity right away somewhere. I thought he was going to be back in New Orleans. And that's no slight to him. I just didn't expect that, right? So now he's off in Philadelphia. So the New Orleans Saints are without that quarterback on the practice squad. Now, I had Ian Book taking up a spot on the practice squad. Now that means that spot is actually open so that the Saints could potentially go and bring somebody else in that they otherwise wouldn't end up getting in there or fitting in there. Now, I'll say that Ian Book's ability to work off schedule is great for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a good fit in terms of, you look at what he does with what they do with Jalen Hurts. Not that Jalen Hurts and he are the same caliber of runner, but still he's somebody that can operate outside of schedule, that can, make plays with his legs, and that throws on the run and is comfortable throwing on the run. And I think all of that really works in terms of him fitting into a system that's probably going to be better for him than the system that was available for him in New Orleans, if we're just being honest. And I see Jaquel said the same thing. Ian Book fits well with the Eagles. Completely agree. For the New Orleans Saints, though, what do you end up doing now at the quarterback spot, right? So you have the 2 quarterbacks in Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. The next big piece is going to be who's your backup. And I think that that's pretty easy to answer, actually. It's still Taysom Hill, right? It's just that Taysom Hill is taking up a spot in the tight end room as opposed to taking up a spot at quarterback instead. But he's still basically your QB3 while also being your tight end. So if Jameis Winston gets injured in game or something like that, or just has to go off to tie his shoe, Andy Dalton steps in. If Jameis is taking a very long time to tie his shoe and Andy Dalton needs to put his helmet back on, then you march Taysom Hill out there under center, and then you give him a couple of snaps, and then Taysom comes out, Jameis comes out after his shoes are tied. All of that. So there's a whole bunch when it comes to how well the New Orleans Saints are still prepared when it comes to that quarterback position. So not a bad thing to see Ian Book go anywhere. I actually hope that the opportunity works out great for him and that it's not a Josh Rosen type situation to where he bounces around just a little bit too early in his career. I hope it all works out really well for Ian Book. Somebody mentioned Jaquel saying, I just want Merritt on the squad. Well, so far he's on the practice squad, so that's a good thing. The Saints have officially signed Kirk Merritt to the practice squad, so that's trending upwards so far, but I'm not sure that story is completely over yet. We got to see what happens with Traquan Smith and the potential for him to go to injured reserve. The other piece that I want to discuss here is that the New Orleans Saints also made a move on the waiver wire today, signing offensive lineman and offensive tackle out of Northwest Missouri State University. I did not make that up. That is an actual school. Tanner Owen. And Tanner Owen has proven to be a pretty good tackle over the course of his time, at least at Northwest Missouri State University, where he started all 52 games of his collegiate career, according to his collegiate bio, did not miss a game. He was a part of an offense that ranked number 13 in offense at 457.5 yards per game, and he did a lot of work over there. So he spent a lot of his time at left tackle. I'm looking to see if maybe he played any other positions as well, but looks like for the most part, he played everything at left tackle. So this could be a guy that the Saints wanted to get a quick look at or really like at left tackle depth. This isn't going to be a guy that's going to come in and start over James Hurst, but you still need some depth there if you're expecting Trevor Penning to go to injured reserve for at least the first 4 games of the season. Once he's off of that, then you're in a situation where you can make a bit of a better situation. Oh, and I am happy to be able to report that it looks like Dejon Dixon is going to be signing to the New Orleans Saints practice squad. So I just got the text from a source, so I'm hoping that comes through and I don't look like a fool. But it looks like that is on the way. So that's great news for Dejon Dixon and the New Orleans Saints and the Nicholls State alum. You definitely want to see that still come through. So it looks like that is about to be the case. So it's one step closer. That's absolutely where he is. So great news for the New Orleans native, for the Nicholls State alum, that he looks like indeed be returning to the New Orleans Saints. Sorry, y'all. This is a little bit all over the place just because of how the news is kind of rolling in and everything. So I hope you don't mind kind of the sporadic nature of things today and all that, but it looks like that is happening. So I'm going to just go ahead and put that out. Bloop. So we are now in a situation here to where we're also looking at what the New Orleans Saints are going to be able to do when it comes to that left tackle position, right? So at left tackle, you've got Tanner Owen there, who can be somebody that ends up filing in as a depth piece, but isn't somebody that's necessarily going to compete as a starter, which is, I think, exactly where you want to be in that situation. So the next piece here is Dejon Dixon, who just signed to that practice squad, or who will be signing to the practice squad, it looks like. And so with that, now the big thing becomes you're looking for who it is that what happens with Traquan Smith. So if Traquan Smith goes to injured reserve, do you elevate Kirk Merritt to the active roster, or do you bring Dejon Dixon to the active roster? So it'll be really interesting to see which of the two Louisiana, I know I always make sound effects, which of the two Louisiana natives ends up on that active roster if that spot becomes available with Traquan Smith potentially going to injured reserve. All right, coming up next, we're going to take a look at where the New Orleans Saints stand in terms of their practice squad right now, and we'll also take a look at sort of my last thoughts, or my newest thoughts on CJ Gardner-Johnson and the surprise transaction yesterday with the New Orleans Saints trading him away to the Philadelphia Eagles. Will the New Orleans Saints be in good shape at that position in 2022? I do believe so, and I'll explain to you the options and why that is the case. Got that coming up for you as we continue on to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Dave. Dave is the online banking app that will make sure that you get up to $500 instantly with what they call extra cash. So if you need a little bit of extra money to put some gas in the tank, you need a little bit extra money for a gift or for a present or for a birthday or something like that, or just need a little bit of help paying the bills, all of those little expenses that can sometimes stress you out, you can now kind of let go of. No, have all of it, but without the hangups. And you're able to do that thanks to Dave and Extra Cash. And you're able to do that because there's no interest and there's no credit check necessary. So get the financial relief that you need, just like millions of other people have already downloaded the Dave app with Extra Cash. Download the Dave app today in the App Store right now. That's DAVE. Sign up for the Extra Cash account so that you can get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking is provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. Future you will thank you. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints with just a quick update as to where the New Orleans Saints practice squad sits thus far. And so the big names are already kind of in that, are already kind of signed there, are guys like Kirk Merritt, now Dejon Dixon, who is indeed being signed to the practice squad. You've also got Nephi Sewell, who has been added there. And then you have a couple of other pieces as well. So I just want to go ahead and break as many of these down as we kind of can while all of this stuff is still moving and in progress. We know that Josh Andrews is back. Josh Andrews is somebody that has some center guard versatility. You want that on your practice squad because right now, the New Orleans Saints don't have a natural center to back up Eric McCoy. Yes, they have Cesar Ruiz, but you don't want to be in a situation to where an injury to Eric McCoy upsets not only your center, but also upsets that right guard position as well, because then you have to move Cesar Ruiz to center, plug somebody else in at right guard. Now, you have a pretty good option back there with a guy like Calvin Throckmorton who can step in at right guard, so it could be much worse than that. But just having that natural center that can slide in would be really great. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, to see, and Mike Triplett from ESPN talked about this earlier today, Nick Martin, still a name to watch that's currently out on the market. The next kind of big domino to fall beyond the guys that are headed to injured reserve are going to be guys like Lucas Kroll and some of the other players that Saints fans have really, really grown to like. But you're also watching for some of those veteran linebackers, John Bostic as well as Eric Wilson, who we had discussed earlier. If not coming back to the New Orleans Saints active roster, then coming back to the practice squad would be a great situation for the New Orleans Saints, who curiously only carry 5 linebackers as of right now. So that's a bit of a tricky situation for the Saints, who have 3 established starters, but then question marks kind of behind those guys. Zach Bond hasn't really developed into that off-ball linebacker that the Saints have hoped for, but he's a great on-ball option. So allowing him to play on the strong side makes sense, and hopefully we'll see a little bit more of that for him in 2022. But Caden Ellis is kind of firmly implanted there as a starter. The other piece behind all of that is, in that conversation, is Andrew Dowell, who's a fantastic special teamer. And he's not one of those special teamers that you learn about a whole bunch because he plays gunner and he makes these electrifying plays on the outside. He makes the electrifying plays, but he makes them right up the middle, in the thick of where these special teams units have to win or lose effectively in the trenches. He's coming from the up man spots and things like that. So Andrew Dowell's there. You see some of those good players there at linebacker, but you're still looking for some of that veteran depth to come and fill in as well. Let's see if there's any other big updates when it comes to the practice squad for the New Orleans Saints. But I think we've hit everybody, including DeMarcus Fields as well. Now, I wanted to kind of wrap up today. We got 400 people in here. This is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. And I still have this disclaimer up. This is such a wild episode today. I hope y'all are having fun because this is absolute chaos. I wanted to wrap up with a little bit more on CJ Gardner-Johnson and the trade to the Philadelphia Eagles, which is still a trade that surprises me, but it's not necessarily a trade that I think is going to be the difference between the New Orleans Saints winning or losing a Super Bowl. What I've mentioned over and over again over the course of this offseason is CJ Gardner-Johnson is a player that you can fill the role of a slot defender, but you can't replace CJ Gardner-Johnson. Do I think that that's the difference between a Super Bowl and not a Super Bowl? No, not necessarily. But the other piece to, the thing that to kind of look at there is the Saints have the pieces that can fill in and end up producing in the slot. PJ Williams completely revitalized his career there once before. He's been focusing a little bit more at safety, actually almost specifically at safety over the course of this offseason. So there's that to consider. But then you've also got guys like Bradley Roby, who's got 6 interceptions over the course of camp, who has been an outstanding slot defender over the course of his career, over 870 snaps in the slot during his career. And obviously that was heavier towards his rookie years, where he was working with Chris Harris Jr., who became like the premier slot defender in the NFL. So then he ended up moving to the outside, and then, Houston happened. But around all of that, he produced a, 0.98 yard per coverage snap average across the entirety of his career. That never got worse or anything like that. It's just, that's what he did. And he's done that really, really consistently. And so you have that piece. You have Justin Evans, who maybe doesn't play the coverage role that CJ Gardner-Johnson played from the slot, but can be there in the what are called long and late downs, like the 3rd and 10s, the 3rd and 8, stuff like that, to just light his hair on fire and come screaming off the edge after the quarterback. Bradley Roby, an effective blitzer as well. We've seen him and PJ Williams get into the backfield a few times over the course of camp. And then, of course, I don't want to leave out Alontae Taylor, who is the young rookie that the New Orleans Saints really loved. They believe that he's somebody that can contribute and have an impact at the cornerback spot, whether it be on the outside or the inside. They like his versatility. He's somebody that could develop into that role as well. I don't know that he starts the season there. That seems more like a Bradley Roby or PJ Williams kind of a thing with Justin Evans mixed in. But the New Orleans Saints have what they need to fill the role that CJ Gardner-Johnson filled. You can't replace CJ Gardner-Johnson. The energy, the intimidation, all of those factors, hard to make up for. But when it comes to filling the role of a slot defender, the New Orleans Saints have a collection of players that should be able to help them in certain down and distance areas and allow them to be able to utilize that versatility. And oh, by the way, Tyrann Mathieu is also on the team as well. Right? So you have what you need to be able to do that. You're just going to have a little bit of trouble filling in kind of the energy and the swagger and all those other things that CJ Gardner-Johnson brought. But maybe Justin Evans can bring a little bit of that. And I saw somebody say it, I think it was West Bank Rick, and I'm 100% on the same page as you. Smoke Monday next season, 100% could be that guy, because you were talking about somebody that brought a lot of energy during practices. Number 38 absolutely brought a lot of energy during practices. It was upsetting when he had his injury, but hopefully he'll be back in 2023 ready to go. All right, one more check on any other breaking news and all that to make sure that I'm giving you the latest before I get out of here. But I cannot thank y'all enough for being here for another live episode of Locked On Saints, and for being in a situation here to where we're doing these, twice a day now. So we got a whole bunch coming for you here later on. Make sure you get your questions in the chat so I can make sure to answer them later on. I get you all the updates that you need from practice later on today as well. I appreciate you as always making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you go and check out that Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Over 20 years of experience from Vinny Iyer when it comes to Locked On Fantasy Football. So go ahead and take all that, use it to your advantage, and walk away with some championships this fantasy football season. I appreciate y'all as always for being here with us, for making me a part of your day, a part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show, dropping the Your Team Every Days in the chat. I appreciate all of it, y'all, and I thank you very much for everybody who takes the time to say hi. As always, if you need anything in between these episodes on your New Orleans Saints, make sure you're following along on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.